here with us at this time.
Yeah, well, our deadline is coming up right now in a couple of days. And I think you've just heard a lot of chatter about, what we're asking for is not sustainable for the business. And being on this side with Unrivaled, I know what it takes to run a sustainable business. So I think if they can't find a model that makes that happen, they need to put people in place who can, because we've proven that it is possible. There is a way, and we're thriving in that. And so I do think a deal's going to get done, but we're standing for...
Listen to what she just said. Napheesa Collier, Vice President of the WNBA Players Association, currently negotiating the league's next collective bargaining agreement, just used her startup 3-on-3 league to lecture the WNBA about sustainable business models. A league that's been losing money for 27 years should apparently take notes from a venture that's existed for 3 weeks and is burning through investor cash like it's going out of style. The audacity is actually breathtaking.
Was, of course, at Unrivaled opening day. Oh, it was a glorious event, watched by hundreds and hundreds of people across the United States of America. I myself, I gave it a full 2, maybe 2.5 minutes, something like that. I tried. I turned it over there. I mean, the crowd was into it. It's kind of. I mean, if you like a good funeral vibe during a basketball game.
Let's establish some context here. Unrivaled launched its inaugural season in January 2025 with massive fanfare, positioning itself as the solution to WNBA players' off-season financial struggles. Collier and Breanna Stewart co-founded this league, convinced they'd cracked the code that the WNBA somehow missed. Opening night drew a respectable television audience. But here's what nobody's talking about. Those arenas seat maybe 800 people. They're playing in a single location in Miami, and the entire operation is funded by venture capital from investors like Megan Rapinoe and billionaire backers who are subsidizing every single dollar these players earn. That's not a business model. That's a fundraising round.
That's to prop you up so you can start making money and have the infrastructure and the facilities. That's not actual spendable. I mean, what are you doing? Ha ha ha, Unrivaled is a flop. If so, why did she have surgery during Unrivaled's time instead of the WNBA's time? She doesn't care about her failing business. That is a great question.
Now watch the fan reaction to her comments, because this is where it gets interesting. Social media absolutely eviscerated this take, and for good reason. One user pointed out the obvious: one season of a league that nobody's watching, and players' salaries are fully dependent on private investors, not profit. Can she be any more unserious? That's the fundamental issue here. Collier is confusing investment capital with revenue. Those are not the same thing. When TNT Sports agreed to broadcast Unrivaled, they didn't do it because the league was profitable. They did it as a loss leader, hoping to build something long-term. The second those checks stop coming, this entire operation collapses.
TNT is taking massive losses, ruh-roh, for this thing to pretend like they're a successful league. As soon as TNT has started crediting back advertisers that hand out money goes away, this thing collapses. Let's be for real here. That is 100% right. Bravo. How about this? Big old like right there. Seriously, this is the first week of the second season. How do you know how sustainable the business is? I mean, they want the WNBA to fall.
Here's what makes this particularly problematic. Collier and Stewart aren't just random players with a side hustle. They're both vice presidents of the WNBA Players Association, sitting across the table from league executives, trying to negotiate a new CBA. The current agreement expires in October 2025, and the union is reportedly asking for 50% revenue sharing, guaranteed contracts, and significantly higher minimum salaries. Those are reasonable asks if the revenue supports it. But when your chief negotiators are simultaneously running a competing league and publicly suggesting the WNBA should just put people in place who can make the numbers work, you've created a massive conflict of interest. The WNBA's revenue in 2024 was approximately $200 million. That's actual revenue from ticket sales, merchandise, and media rights deals with ESPN, CBS, and Amazon Prime. Compare that to Unrivaled, which has generated exactly $0 in profit and is entirely dependent on investors who are essentially paying for the privilege of being associated with women's basketball. These are fundamentally different financial realities.
I mean, honestly, pop rocks, crack rocks, all the rocks. Geology rock, you name it. If it's a rock, you're trying to light that boy on fire. A 2-year 3x3 pop-up league. Please come back when Unrivaled lasts 3 decades. You can't take her seriously. They're still spending investors' money. The league isn't profitable. Good Lord. Exactly. She runs a slumber party camp with 1,000 fans watching at studio arenas.
Let's talk about the operational differences, because this is where Collier's argument completely falls apart. Unrivaled operates with 6 teams, 30 players total, in a single arena in Miami. They're playing 3-on-3 basketball, which requires half the roster size, minimal travel costs, and a fraction of the infrastructure needed for a traditional league. The WNBA has 12 teams, 144 roster spots, playing 5-on-5 in arenas across the entire country with full travel schedules from May through September. One commenter nailed it. 3x3, small rosters, 1 location, 1 gym, 1 small arena. She is clueless at how to run anything at scale. The economics aren't even comparable. Unrivaled can pay players $80,000 for 8 weeks because they've raised enough venture capital to cover 1 season. Maybe 2. The WNBA has to pay players sustainable salaries across 28 years of operation, and they're still subsidized by the NBA to the tune of tens of millions annually.
Good Lord, we could look at this. Guys, we could keep going. Honestly, how about this one? This B is retarded. 3x3, small rosters, 1 location, 1 gym, 1 small arena. She is clueless at how to run shit. Right, and you got the WNBA going into these massive, well, when Caitlin Clark plays, going into these massive NBA arenas. Except you got her running this Barnum Bailey looking ass basketball league.
And then there's this detail that nobody's talking about. Napheesa Collier had knee surgery in December 2024 and missed the entire opening weeks of Unrivaled's inaugural season. Think about that. She co-founded this league, positioned it as the future of women's basketball, and then scheduled her surgery during her own league season instead of during the WNBA offseason. What does that tell you about how seriously she takes her own venture? If Unrivaled was truly the priority, wouldn't you schedule your medical procedures around it? One fan asked the perfect question. Why did she have surgery during Unrivaled's time instead of WNBA time? She doesn't care about her failing business. That's not just optics. That's revealing where the actual priorities lie.
All while the WNBA standing over there talking about, well, hell, maybe the WNBA's Thanos about to just snap both of them. Actually, Thanos, knocked out half of everybody? So the WNBA about to Thanos snap Unrivaled out. Project B's going to be left. And then WNBA going to be sitting there like Thanos going, where'd that lead you? Back to me. The
comparison to the NBA is instructive here. When the NBA Players Association negotiates their CBA, they're backed by players who generate $9 billion in annual revenue. The league is wildly profitable, so when LeBron James or Chris Paul sit at that negotiating table, they have leverage. The money exists. The WNBA is asking for NBA-style revenue sharing when they're still operating at a loss. That doesn't mean the players don't deserve more money. It means the math has to actually work. You can't demand 50% of revenue when that revenue doesn't cover operating costs. And you definitely can't point to a venture capital-funded startup as proof that sustainable business models exist.
Media, some Yahoo Sports actually decided to call them out. So she made comments because, of course, she used her league to talk about negotiations involving the competitors' league. I did a video yesterday where you got the team president talking about, hey, WNBA, call us. I mean, I can't confirm or deny.
Here's what makes this entire situation so frustrating. The WNBA is actually growing. Television ratings increased 28% in 2024, largely due to the Caitlin Clark effect. Attendance was up across the league. Merchandise sales hit record numbers. The Indiana Fever went from playing in front of 4,000 fans to selling out 17,000-seat arenas. That's real, measurable growth. But it's still not enough to support the salary demands being made, especially when you factor in the operational costs of running a professional sports league across an entire country for 5 months every year. Collier's comments suggest the WNBA just needs better management, as if the problem is incompetence rather than fundamental economics. That's insulting to the people who've kept this league alive for nearly 3 decades. The WNBA has survived because the NBA subsidizes it, because sponsors believe in the mission, and because fans continue showing up despite the financial realities. Acting like Unrivaled's 3-week existence proves the WNBA is mismanaged, is either breathtakingly naive or deliberately disingenuous. Let's talk about what happens next. The CBA deadline is approaching in October 2025, and the Players' Union has already indicated they're willing to sit out the season if their demands aren't met. That would be catastrophic for a league that's finally gaining mainstream traction. Sponsors would walk away. Television networks would reconsider their deals. Fans who just discovered the league through Caitlin Clark would move on to something else. The momentum the WNBA has built over the past year could evaporate overnight. And here's the thing, Collier and Stewart have a safety net. If the WNBA implodes, they've got Unrivaled. They've already secured their bag through investor funding. But what about the other 130 players who don't have equity in a startup league? What about the rookies who are trying to establish careers? What about the veterans who've spent 15 years building the WNBA into something viable? They're the ones who get hurt when negotiations blow up. The conflict of interest is staggering. Imagine if NFL Players' Union representatives also owned a competing spring football league and used that league's existence to argue the NFL was mismanaged. It would be considered absurd. But somehow in women's basketball, we're supposed to pretend this is normal. Look, I want WNBA players to make more money. They absolutely deserve better compensation, but the path to getting there isn't through delusional comparisons to venture capital-funded startups that haven't proven they can survive past their initial funding round. It's through continued growth in viewership, increased sponsorship revenue, and realistic negotiations that acknowledge the current financial realities while building toward a more profitable future. Unrivaled might succeed. Maybe they'll figure out a sustainable business model that doesn't rely on billionaires writing checks out of charity, but using their 3 weeks of existence as evidence that the WNBA is doing something wrong is intellectually dishonest, at best, and actively harmful to CBA negotiations at worst. The WNBA has been around since 1990. They've survived economic recessions, competing leagues, and decades of being dismissed by mainstream sports media. They've built something real, even if it's not yet profitable. Unrivaled has been around since January 20. They've survived exactly nothing. Come back in 5 years, show me the profit and loss statements, prove that your model works without constant investor infusions, and then maybe we can have this conversation. Until then, Napheesa Collier needs to decide whether she's a union negotiator fighting for WNBA players, or a startup founder promoting her own competing venture. Because right now, she's trying to do both, and it's undermining the credibility of the entire CBA negotiation process. So here's my question for you. Is Collier actually trying to improve the WNBA, or is she using her union position to promote Unrivaled as the superior alternative? Because those are very different motivations, and the answer matters a lot for the future of women's professional basketball. Drop your take in the comments. And if you think I'm missing something here, tell me where I'm wrong. Hit that like button if you want more honest breakdowns of WNBA business decisions. And subscribe because this CBA negotiation is about to get very messy, and we're covering every development as it happens.